I want to give on this video my experiences of Brexit from somebody who was actually on the front line, as it were. In the run-up to it, we were advertising a lot. We did a few things on the streets. We did some leaflet drops. And it's not very easy if you're working full-time as well. On the great day itself, June 23rd, I took the day off. And as well as actually campaigning, I also had to actually open up an election station. So I was right at the very start to go in, open up this election station, make sure the counters were all happy and everything was set up. And then I spent the day going out, leafleting when I could, come back, resting a bit, go off leafleting, resting back, checking the news, leafleting, checking back. It just went on all day. And I remember all the way through it having this very clear thought that we'd lost it. I thought that the death of Saint Joan of Cox had probably done for us, and that people would be voting out of sympathy for her tragic death rather than on the merits of the case. And I was very well aware there'd been a poll conducted that start of that day, which put the Remain campaign about 10 points ahead. And it was certainly true that they had seemed to have been pulling back a little bit in the last week of campaigning. So I was quite despondent, and I remember feeling quite despondent. Right at the very end, I had to go and lock up at 10 o'clock. And because it was a very big election, it took a long time for the counters to count up and get all their stuff assembled and everything. There was a lot of stuff to do. And I asked them if I could have a lift down to the counting place, which was the local town hall, which they very kindly agreed to do. So we went there. I didn't get there till about gone 10:30. And you go up into these stairs, and there's a kind of holding room with all the representatives and the agents, while the counting's done in the next round, where they were just busy assembling all their boxes at the time. I walked up the stairs, and I saw Col, who's the local UKIP branch chairman, with another UKIPper talking. I went up and said, "How are you?" And we were looking, turning around, and in the room, and it's a fairly substantial room, on one side there's about 25 to 30 people, all wearing big red rosettes with "in" on it, Labour Party members, 25, 30 of them. I'm thinking, how the heck do they do that? They're only allowed 6 observers. But you're allowed 6 observers from each organisation, and they dragged in 3 or 4 different organisations, the Labour organisations, which were campaigning for Remain. So there's about 25, 30 of them up there, and they were all bustling around, and they're all smiles, and they were clapping each other on the back and everything like that. And then they had a little group photograph. Obviously, cameras aren't allowed in these places, but they did have an official photographer who wasn't actually from the local rag. She was a freelancer who the local rag had employed. And they had him set up for a little photo shoot, and they went off and they got hold of the local Liberal Democrat who sat there with 2 other people with yellow rosettes, Liberal Democrats, and invited him in. He's a very nice chap, actually, wrong though he is on most points, but he's a very nice man. And they had them all together and all had this little group photograph, and they were so smug. They were so sure they'd won. It was heartbreaking. There was just me and Carl and 2 or 3 other UKIP guys and a couple of independent Leave campaigners. I remember about 6 of us, about 30. About 3 or 4 to 1. And more of our guys turned up later on, but we were still heavily outnumbered. And it was very disparaging. There was no Tories there at all. The Conservatives had completely opted out, or the local Conservatives anyway, completely opted out of the Brexit thing. There was nobody from there at all. There were no Greens there either. It was just half a dozen UKIPers, 3 or 4 independent Leave campaigners, and these hordes of Labour people and a few Liberals on the Remain side. They must have known they were going to lose the constituency we were at. We knew we were going to win my local constituency, but obviously they'd heard that the Remain was ahead. And obviously, very famously, Nigel Farage conceded at 11:15, 3/4 an hour after the polls closed and before any results had been announced. And I remember hearing that, saying that Nigel had conceded, thinking, "Oh, that's it." Then we heard that he'd retracted that concession. In fact, he denied he even made it about 10 minutes later, so it was still on. So we went in and we started going around, and observing them as they counted all the counts and everything. And the first results started to come in. I think the first one was Gibraltar, which was heavily for Remain, and everybody knew that. And then the Newcastle result came in, and all these smug grins started to freeze a little bit. And then more and more results come in, and very slowly it became more and more clear that things weren't going according to plan. And it was very, very satisfying. I have to admit, it really was. My personal circumstances are that I've spent all my life living in areas which are Labour strongholds. So this obviously is coming from that kind of experience. I'm quite sure this exists, however, in Tory or Conservative strongholds as well. But I can't comment on it because I've never experienced it. I've only ever lived in Labour strongholds. And the problem with being in that's very, very strongly tied to one particular party is that the local members of the party become very complacent. And I'm not trying to say the Labour councillors that we've got are all rubbish. On the contrary, some of them are very good. But the point is they don't need to be very good. They regard elections as just almost like a God-given right to have political office. They just do not... They always win. They're very used to winning, and they are not good winners. And as we would find out, they weren't particularly good losers either, because as the night progressed, and we didn't declare until I think it was about 2 a.m, the smiles slowly slumped into frowns, and more of them slowly sidled off. And I think by the time we announced, I think it was about 2:30 a.m, only about half of them were left, and it was quite clear by then. By the time we declared that it looked like Leave was going to win, and I don't think they quite declared it, but it looked like it was almost mathematically certain that Leave was going to win. And I always remember looking. We were there, sat on these benches that were surrounding where they're doing the counting, and there was a single red rosette within on it, just been flung down on the chair, just lying there kind of forlornly. And I wish I'd been able to take a picture of it, but obviously you can't allow cameras in there. But it was so symbolic. We were very good about it when it actually was announced, and we won. And we won in every single ward of our constituency as well, quite handsomely. We'd even won the postal vote. Everything, we'd won the lot by a substantial margin in some cases. I think overall we were about 60-40 or something like that. So well ahead of the national average. One of our lads gave a whoop. But everybody else just smiled and shook hands with each other, and job well done. And we were all quite tired by then, I suppose. But it was satisfying. I'm afraid I didn't want to be smug about it, but it was very satisfying that we actually showed them that they could actually be beaten, and it's a good thing, really. It's not good if a party is so tied or so controlling of one particular constituency, because they become complacent, the opposition becomes despondent, and nobody really cares about you. Running elections is expensive. It costs a lot of time, lots of money, and if you're very tied to one party, then the only party says, well, they're going to be loyal, we don't need to put much of an effort into them. The opposition says, well, we're not going to win it, so why should we bother? And you just get ignored. It's not very good for the town to be so tied to one political party. You really need to have... It's better if you're a marginal constituency, because you get more attention and more effort placed into you. So anyway, that was my experiences of Brexit. We were very tired at the end of it. We all had a big celebration about a week and a half afterwards, and it was against the odds. We thought we were going to lose, and in fact we won. Well, then that was my experience of it. Thank you for listening.